Welcome to the committee. It is Thursday, March 2nd, a little bit after 1 o'clock, and I'd like to call the State, Local Government, and Veterans Committee to order. Members, we're going to do a couple of things today. We are going to begin with a budget overview from our Attorney General, and then we are going to 4 bills. So we have a full agenda, and we're a little short on time because we ran over doing the work on the floor. So with that, I'd like to welcome Attorney General Keith Ellison and your staff to the committee. We're grateful that you're here again. I would love it if you'd introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and may I also thank all committee members, including Ranking Member Anderson. To my left is Chief of Staff Donna Cassett, and to my right is Laura Sales, who's our legislative advocate. Let me start by telling you a little bit about what we're asking for. We're here to address the budget requests of the AG's office for the 24-25 biennium. The Attorney General biennium budget request includes two matters, two requests for funding. One is a one-time operating adjustment of about $9.97 million for FY24 only, and the other is an ongoing operating adjustment of $12.68 million for FY24 and ongoing. Both are critical to our office needs, and I'd like to explain them to you. But before I do, I'd like to just note that the largest source of our funds is the general fund, about $26 million, or about 61% of our overall budget. The second largest source of our budget is our partner revenue, which is amount of money that we charge to agencies for representation. And those two sources represent, over north of 90% of our budget. We have some other small sources. I'd like to also note that the Attorney General's office has experienced a dramatic lack of investment over the last 3 decades. And without adjustment, our general fund appropriation for 24-25 would represent only about 65% of our base funding from 30 years ago in inflation-adjusted dollars. This lack of investment is also reflected in our attorney staffing levels. Madam Chair, you know, as a former staffer at the AG's office, in 1998 we had about 250 lawyers. In 2018 we had 135. So that is a dramatic drop, more than 100. And now, 2023, we have 150, which is better than 135, but we're still not in a position where we can meet the needs of the people of our state. These staffing levels are consistent, not with our other non-attorney staff. So the drops that you see in the attorney numbers are consistent for paralegals, legal secretaries, things like that. Let me just say, in that same period of time that I just noted, from 1998 until now, the state of Minnesota's population has grown by 1.2 million people, 30%. Society has become more complex and more litigious, not less. Technology, social media, things like that have created brand new challenges. We didn't have to worry about TikTok. Now we do. And the challenges that Minnesotans face affording their lives grow more daunting by the day. And so to close the gap between the challenges of our constituents and the resources of our office, we're asking you for these appropriations. Let me say that we simply can't do the work that the people of the state need us to do with 60% of the attorney and other staff resources we had 30 years ago. Now, let me mention the first budget item that I asked you about, the one-time operating adjustment. Again, just about $10 million. It does not add any FTEs. What it does is it allows us to invest in our physical office infrastructure, which has not had any improvement in over 30 years. It allows us to invest in technology, which just allows us to do more with less. It allows us to serve more people without necessarily adding more people. Also, internal safety and security. I'll just note for the record that there was a news story just out today where the Attorney General in Michigan has her life threatened by a person who is angered by her status as a Jewish person and is threatening to kill her. It's all over the news. But these kind of things are not confined to somewhere else. They happen all over the country, including in Minnesota. And then the other thing, so the internal security and safety matter is important. And then funds to facilitate a multi-state complex litigation fund, which we think would be important in order to meet the needs of the people of our state. I'll explain it in a moment. First, the one-time dollars to renovate our office. The office space, first leased in 1994, must be improved to improve safety and security for employees and data. When we have to have security, it's not just safety for people, although that's the top priority. It's also safety for data. As a law firm, we have duty of confidentiality for our clients, and we have to keep that data secure. And then also, we have to have adequate space for our people who go to work every day and serve the state. The most cost-effective way to meet these goals is to update the space that we already occupy. We're not asking for any new space. We just want to renovate the space that we have to make sure that it's up to date with modern technology and security rather than moving. Secondly, we're seeking a one-time adjustment for technology and modernization, hybrid work technology to make, because some people, we do have a remote work policy now, and we need to make sure that we don't lose anything, as some people are not there 5 days a week, but are working 5 days a week. But also cybersecurity, critical litigation technology resources that are necessary for modern litigation and our law library. Also, ongoing costs for this request are part of our larger ongoing budget. And finally, we're requesting one-time funding to create a complex litigation account of $1 million one time. So let me explain that. First of all, our state regularly litigates complex consumer protection matters. This is something we do all the time, and we've been doing it for a long time. Upfront costs of joining multi-state litigation can be prohibitive. They're currently very expensive. Initial funding of the $1 million that I'm asking for is a one-time amount. It would allow us to use a small percentage of recoveries from consumer protection lawsuits to create a revolving fund that will be used to fund ongoing litigation. The fund would never exceed $2 million and would be fully auditable, and we would report to you and the governor about this money. And what would it pay for? Well, cost shares that I have to deal with almost every day. Might be bankruptcy counsel in the opioid cases. It might be a number of things, but there are regular and ongoing costs for these complex multi-state litigations. And by the way, this multi-state litigation is almost always bipartisan litigation. And multiple states, including Iowa and others, have similar funds. This fund also can continue to work for Minnesotans without an ongoing general fund appropriation. Now, let me move on to the second matter that we're asking for, and that would be a request for increased ongoing base funding in the amount of $12.86 for FY24 and ongoing. This would increase the office to 32 FTEs. We still would be nowhere close to where we were in 1998. And that would be about a 9% increase against our current total number. This ongoing base funding will serve three purposes. One, it'll help us attract and retain the best talent. It'll ensure that we have sufficient administrative as well as legal staff to fulfill office responsibilities. It'll modernize information technology infrastructure as part of our year-long effort to rebuild the office. Let me take on the first matter. We're requesting ongoing base funding to help staff salaries to catch up with salaries in other public law offices. We're not talking about catching up with Dorsey and Whitney. That's simply not possible and probably never will be. People who work for the Attorney General's office want to work in public service. We understand that. And they forego that larger salary because they want to serve the public. But the salary gap between our office and other public law offices is substantial, particularly Hennepin County and Ramsey County, and also the United States Attorney's Office. We cannot even match the higher salaries of private firms, as I noted, but we ought to be able to keep our people from going to Ramsey County. The state particularly suffers from the loss of investment in training and experience when people who love public service take a position at Hennepin or Ramsey simply because they need to fund their retirement. They want to buy a house. They want to live life. We simply have to break the cycle to maintain and retain talent, and I think this is a very reasonable request. Second, ongoing funding for additional attorneys and administrative staff. We have a long way to go to restaff our office to do the work of a 21st century public interest law firm as we are. On the legal side, we're requesting more funding for lawyers to do consumer protection. That's the opioid work, wage theft. We only have one FTE doing that. Antitrust. It's a serious issue that goes on. We're at a historic high in terms of market concentration. If you believe in free enterprise, you've got to also believe in antitrust litigation because it's what keeps markets fair and competitive. Charities, no doubt, that is a critical need. Post-conviction review, and we have a civil rights division which is already overprescribed. On the administrative side, we're asking for staff to help administer our information technology, training, security, human resources, including diversity resources, to make sure we have a inclusive workspace, finance, and community engagement and communications. Those staff areas are vitally important. Minnesotans deserve to know what we're doing, but we need people to help us inform them. And so that's part of what we're asking for. Let me now go to my conclusion. Madam Chair and members, I'd like to just bring to your attention an important point that I make nearly every year, but I think it bears remembering. The Attorney General's office brings far more money to the state of Minnesota than we ever asked for. In the last 4 years, the office has returned $1.5 billion to the state and directly to the people of the state of Minnesota. This includes $1 billion to residential and small business utility ratepayers when we fight and make sure rates are lower, and more than $300 million in settlements from opioid companies and more coming. And that's not to mention the dozens and dozens of cases that we settle all the time in various matters that we pursue. The Attorney General's office represents an excellent return on investment. And so we ask for the support so we can support the people of our state. And that's, I'll be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, General Ellison. We're grateful for your time and how much time you spent with our committee this session already. We're appreciating that a lot. Members, are there questions on this budget overview? All right, then. Thank you very much. We're grateful, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Ms. Sales, Ms. Cassett, thank you for being here. All right, just so everybody knows, a quorum's present. We are going to hear 4 bills. The first is Senate File 1431, Senator Frentz. Welcome to the hot seat. And I believe this is the first time that you have come to our committee. I'll tell you, this is a really, really wonderful committee. So welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members, for having me. Very pleased to present Senate File 1431 to you. Madam Chair, we did not list her as a testifier, but I believe she did reach out. I have Michelle Weber from the Subcommittee on Employee Relations in case members have questions. Hope that's okay.
Welcome to the committee.
With that, members, you have in front of you Senate File 1163. Senate File 1163, sorry, I got the wrong number, 1431, presenting another
Senate File
bill.
1431.
So which bill do you think I should present? The one that goes to State Gov?
I think
This right here.
Yeah, that's right. There you go.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Thanks for the indulgence. Senate File 1431 is divided into two sections. Section 1 ratifies 2 sets of Minnesota State employee contracts. These are the men and women that do the work that make our state successful. Section 2 announces and puts into the bill the memorandums of understanding. Madam Chair, just a brief description. The 2 entities described in Section 1 are the Minnesota Government Engineering Council, and in the bill it references the contract which we're asking for this committee to ratify. That contract provides a 2.5% increase across the board effective July 1st, 2021. Members will note these are contracts that have been negotiated and we're asking for ratification. The second is the Minnesota State College faculty, those of us who have Min-State campuses like I do in my district, Minnesota State Mankato, South Central College, Senator Jasinski has a South Central campus. These are the contracts that we're asking for ratification for the faculty there. The high-level view, Madam Chair, is these are a number of step increases for MSCF members averaging 3.2% for faculty that meet certain criteria, and add some provisions related to adjunct faculty compensation. Another discussion for another committee is adjunct faculty and how the state hopes to recruit those, and I'll keep that out of state government today, Madam Chair. In Section 2, the memorandums of understanding, there are several there and happy to answer questions. But Madam Chair and members, that's the basics. We have this process to allow the legislature to review and sign off or raise questions about contract ratification. It's our sign as a legislature that we support what has already been negotiated. And as you can probably guess, one of the features of this process is that these men and women that work for the state have already seen the results of the negotiation and are simply asking for the state government committee and the legislature to ratify or approve those. And with that, Madam Chair, happy to have Ms. Weber provide any further testimony or to answer questions. Thank you.
Welcome to the committee, Ms. Weber. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Madam Chair and members, I'm Michelle Weber with the Legislative Coordinating Commission, and we provide staff support to the Subcommittee on Employee Relations. The 2 contracts that Senator Frentz mentioned were submitted to the subcommittee after the adjournment of the last legislative session, and they did go into effect 30 days after, which is allowed for under law. The Minnesota Engineering Council contract covers 1,123 employees, and the Minnesota State College faculty agreement covers 3,961 faculty at the community and technical colleges. I can provide a little detail on the memorandums of understanding if that would be helpful. They are somewhat similar to other memorandums of understanding that were negotiated with the other 18 agreements that were ratified last session as well. And they provide incentives for attracting and retaining state employees in order to deal with staffing shortages. They also provide some rest and recuperation leave for DNR employees who have been returning from firefighting in other jurisdictions. Some incentives for the Minnesota Lottery employees. They do permit some employees to use sick leave to care for minor children who are quarantined. Provide pay differential for Department of Revenue employees working in other states. They provide some wage rates for DHS employees, establish compensation for some employees at the state academies to attend training, and they permit the Secretary of State to offer achievement awards.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Senator Anderson, do you have a question for Ms. Weber?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Weber, you mentioned the number of employees. First, I got the second one, the 3,961 faculty. You said, what was the first number that you mentioned?
Ms. Weber.
Madam Chair and Senator Anderson, for the Minnesota Government Engineering Council, they estimate that that covers 1,123 employees.
Thank you.
Senator Anderson. Members, are there further questions for Ms. Weber or for Senator Frentz? Senator Frentz, can you share with me and the committee one more time the contracts that are being ratified in this proposal?
Sure can. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, in Section 1 of the bill, we're asking you to ratify first the Minnesota Government Engineering Council contracts. Again, these are negotiated July 1st, 2021. Ms. Weber's provided some numbers. A bit of context, Madam Chair, would be this would require $11.9 million in this biennium and $18.2 million in the next biennium. And just to be clear, this biennium for this ratification process means the one we're in currently, as opposed to some of our budgeting, which looks to the next biennium. And then, Madam Chair, the Minnesota State College faculty is the second part of Section 1. These are the faculty members on those campuses. That is a $28.2 million ratification for the current biennium and $40.1, I believe, for the following biennium, if that's the kind of background you're looking for, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Frentz. I appreciate that very much. And when we move on this today, it will go to the floor, and then we'll take a final vote on this proposal. Is there anything else that you want to share with us?
No, but I appreciate being given the opportunity to have the bill heard, Madam Chair and members. Again, these are working men and women for our state who are already working under the understanding that this is likely to be ratified. And while I know we guard our taxpayer dollars carefully, I hope you'll consider approving the bill, sending it to the floor. Picture all of our jobs if they said, hey, work for a year or two, and then we'll tell you if you'll get the money that we promised you. You'd probably prefer to have some approval. And I think with that, Madam Chair, I'd simply ask for a yes vote on the bill from members.
Thank you, Senator Frentz. And for those people who are working, will be, or covered by these contracts, we should say thank you also to them for all the work that they're doing for all of us. Members, with no further questions, I'll move that Senate File 1431 be recommended to pass and be sent to general orders. All those in favor, please say aye. Senator Drazkowski. Yes, Senator Drazkowski, you may.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Weber, can you tell us what are the average increases for those that do have steps for each of those two contracts? I mean, if you add the across the board or COLAs with their steps, you got two categories, those who do have steps, those who don't. What are the total increases for each of those two groups?
Yes.
Across
Ms. Weber. Madam Chair and Senator Drazkowski, the engineering contract includes a 2.5% across the board COLA increase, and then there's also step increases that are average about 3.9% for the employees who are eligible for it. Those are individuals who are not at the top of their salary range. And then for the state college faculty contract, those include a 3.2% increase for certain employees. And I will have to look at more detail to see if I believe there are other types of incentives that one is including. It's including an equivalent of a 3.2% increase for faculty who have 15 years of experience.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Weber. So what would the biennial increase be for those two categories if you add everything together?
Ms. Weber.
Madam Chair and Senator Drazkowski, I do not have the breakdown for each of those categories. I just have the total cumulative effect, but I can follow up and get that information. I also am looking to see if anyone from MMB or Minnesota State are here and might have the more detailed breakdown for you.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, thank you, Ms. Weber. I've seen these come across over the years, and when I was on the subcommittee on employee relations, I raised the frustration about these are huge decision-making points for us as a legislature, and the amount of information we get is very limited. We don't see the increases to costs in the insurance side in these summaries often. We don't see the increase in the retirement costs and some of the other costs for each of the individual contracts. And I'll say it again, as I did about 5 or 6 years ago, but I would hope that we could have more granular data for each of these. I know it's available. I just sense that for some reason we're in kind of the same old, the approach of the memo really hasn't changed over time. And there's a lot more information I know that is available at the subcommittee. goes back and forth on when they have their discussions. And it would be good if we had more data for each of those categories so we could get a full understanding of what we're voting on here. I sense that this doesn't provide it. So I'm going to sound the alarm on that once again, Madam Chair, and hope that as we bring more of these forward, we can have all of the data instead of just this really summary data that we have in this small summary. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Drazkowski. Glad to report that there is a summary that is sent to subcommittee members, and I know Ms. Weber would be happy to provide it, not only to you, but for those members who want a closer look or a more granular look. That information is available, and I've seen it here. Senator, I'm sure Ms. Weber would be happy to show you very soon.
Ms. Weber, if you'd like to send that to our office, we can make sure and get it to all the committee members.
Madam Chair and members, I'd be happy to provide that.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. All right, then, seeing no further questions, the motion before us is to recommend Senate File 1431 to pass and be sent to general orders. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. And the motion is adopted. On your way. We'd like to welcome Senator Pappas, who is in the room. Senate File 1616. Welcome to the committee, Senator Pappas and Ms. Weber. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have the A1 amendment. Senator Pappas.
The A1? All right, Senator Pappas, the A1 amendment is an author's amendment.
Yes,
Would you like to just briefly describe what's in this amendment?
I will, Madam Chair. This fills in the submission date and adds two memorandums of understanding that were negotiated last year and are technically separate from the contract. In fact, they're substantially the same as the MOUs from 2022 that were in the governor's supplemental budget, but they failed when there was no budget deal. The ratification and funding for both will be in the governor's HHS budget bill. One resolves a set of issues related to the temporary emergency PCA rate increase that was passed at the start of the COVID emergency, where some of the workers in the bargaining unit did not receive that money from their agencies. And the other provides stipends to help workers defray the costs of complying with the federal electronic visit verification program. That's a lot that it does.
Thank you, Senator Pappas. The A1 amendment is before us. It's an author's amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. And the motion is adopted. The bill is before us in the order that you'd like it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a short explanation, then I can turn it over to Ms. Weber. Senate File 1616 ratifies the contract recently agreed to between self-directed home care workers represented by SEIU Healthcare Minnesota and the state. The contract will be funded by a different bill to be introduced, which will be heard in Human Services. The funding language is also carried in the governor's Human Services budget bill. SEIU members voted to ratify the contract and have sent it to MMB, who submitted it to the Legislative Coordinating Committee, the Subcommittee on Employee Relations. The contract covers approximately 29,000 workers in 3 self-directed home care programs. They include the PCA Choice Program, where clients qualify for hours of service, and 2 budget programs, the Medicaid-funded Consumer-Directed Community Supports Program and the state-only funded Consumer Support Grants Program. These programs are all self-directed, where the client recruits, trains, and supervises the worker. Agencies serve only as a fiscal entity to process payroll. The contract does not apply to the workers in the traditional or agency PCA program. In that program, the agency hires, trains, and supervises the worker on behalf of the client. Those workers are private sector employees of the agency. I should note, however, that while those workers are not covered by the contract, the agency will receive the same rate increase without the same requirement to pass the funding along to the workers. Since they gained the right to form a union, this will be the 5th contract that's been negotiated. Every time they've made progress. but this contract stands out as a game changer. The contract raises the minimum hourly wage from $15.25 to $19 in January of next year and $20 in January of the year after. Higher wages will help fight the enormous workforce shortage that has been faced in the home care industry. Currently, there are over 10,000 unfilled home care positions in Minnesota. And I'm sure you might have seen the horrific stories of disabled clients suffering or even dying in their homes because they were unable to find a caregiver. For the first time, this contract will allow a real dent in the workforce shortage and attract the workforce needed. These workers, predominantly women and people of color, have been essential workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. They stood by their clients during the worst of times. Now it is our turn to value their work. Before I turn it over to Ms. Weber to fully explain the details of the contract, I want to highlight some important points. This is a bipartisan effort, and I want to thank Senators Howe, Abler, Murphy, and McQuaid for co-authoring this bill with me. Second, this is an open shop contract. Although all workers in the unit enjoy the benefits of the contract, no worker is required to join the union or pay any dues or fair share fees. Ms. Weber.
Welcome to the committee, Ms. Weber. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Michelle Weber with the Subcommittee on Employee Relations and under the Legislative Coordinating Commission. As Senator Pappas mentioned, this bill ratifies the fiscal year 24-25 agreement with SEIU. And it also requires, there will be two actions that will be required by the legislature in order to ratify this agreement. The first is the ratification of the agreement, and then there's also required an appropriation of funds, which typically travels through the Health and Human Services Committee. The agreement increases the minimum hourly wage from $15.25 an hour to $19 an hour on January 1st, 2024, or within 30 calendar days of federal approval of a state plan and waiver amendment. And then it increases the minimum wage to $20 on January 1st, 2025, or within 30 days of federal approval. It creates a tiered wage structure for PCA Choice and CFSS on January 1st, 2025, or within 90 days of federal approval. And that tiered structure ranges from $20 an hour up to $22.50 an hour, depending on the cumulative hours worked since July 1st of 2017. It replaces two floating holidays that are in the existing agreement with recognition of Independence Day and Veterans Day as paid holidays, and it also adds Juneteenth as a paid holiday. It creates an orientation committee to design orientation programming and dedicates $500,000 a year for that work. It provides $3 million for stipends to individuals who complete the orientation sessions. It also permits the parties to create a joint management trust fund with the state providing $1 million for future programs. It increases funds that are available for existing training stipends. There are $500 training stipends to providers from $1 million to $2 million. And it includes a letter of agreement providing $1,000 stipends for providers with 6 months of service. And $50 million is provided for those stipends. The overall costs of the agreement are estimated to be $302.7 million in fiscal year 24-25 and $490.6 million in 26-27. The amendment that was adopted during today's committee ratified two memorandums of understanding that Senator Pappas mentioned, the first of which provides $1.4 million for up to $1,000 stipends for providers who provided services and meet certain conditions between December 1st, 2020 and February 7th, 2021. It also requires DHS to cooperate with the Department of Labor and Industry when reviewing complaints from providers. And the second memorandum of understanding provides $5.6 million for $200 stipends to offset the costs of using individual devices when providing electronic visit verification. And it requires DHS to provide training sessions regarding EVV. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. We also have, Senator Pappas, we have a virtual testifier. So we'd like to welcome Ms. Hannick to the committee. Welcome. It's good to see you. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Chair Murphy and members of the committee, my name is Andrea Hannick. I live in Duluth, and I have a degree in women's studies from the University of Minnesota Morris. I'm here to testify on behalf of my union, SEIU Healthcare of Minnesota and Iowa. Our union represents over 50,000 healthcare workers across the state, including workers in hospitals, clinics, and nursing homes. Our home care sector is the largest unit, which covers almost 29,000 self-directed home care workers, including PCAs and family caregivers. My children, Archer and Odin, require full-time PCA services. Odin is autistic, and Archer is autistic and has encephalopathy. Whew, I got that word right. During the COVID emergency, throughout the emergency, I've been providing PCA services to them because of the difficulty of providing workers. And truth be told, it was hard before then as well. Home care programs in Minnesota have been in crisis for years. There are over 10,000 unfilled PCA positions across our state because of the lack of wages and benefits. I knew that something had to change. So I became an active member of SEIU Healthcare Minnesota several years ago. I'm incredibly proud to have been on the team that bargained this amazing contract. For the first time, many of us have growing hope that our industry will change for the better. I want to thank Governor Walz and his administration for working with us and being such part of such an incredible life-changing moment for so many people. So as you heard already a little bit, but I'll say it one more time, our contract includes, the agreement includes a minimum wage increase from $15.25 to $20 over 2 years. There's a $1,000 bonus for those who have worked 6 months in the bargaining unit to really help retain workers. There's a wage scale for experienced workers to keep the people who have been doing this work the longest and that enjoy it and that are just really good at it. And instead of leaving for better paying jobs with better benefits that they may not enjoy and that that we need them to stay in these ones. So those experienced caregivers who invest in this work will finally see stepped increases of up to $22.50 an hour. We also won the ability to shape an orientation program with DHS that will help professionalize our industry. This is an opportunity to give caregivers that support, to give caregivers the support and information they need to do their work well and to fulfill their potential. I learned to navigate these programs through trial and error because I had no choice. Orientation will make it easier for other PCAs to help clients get their needs met and do this safely. When Archer and Odin were born, I had to leave the workforce for what I assumed would be a short amount of time. However, from the time they were very young, it was obvious they needed significantly more support than most children. It has taken my full capacity to provide their needed care, advocate for them across multiple systems, such as school, county programs, doctors, hospitals, clinics, and as often as I can, I really try to just be their mom. This contract, especially raising these wages, gives me hope for 3 reasons. Number 1, my kids will be able to have developmentally appropriate and quality PCA care from a professional who is not their mom. Number 2, because I will be able to find staff, I will have the opportunity to share my talents, my skills, and my leadership experience again in the workforce. And I'll have more opportunities to do so. And number 3, and this is one that really gets me, is I'll have more and more opportunities, as I mentioned before, to just be their mom, their soft spot to land as the world becomes ever more complicated for them to navigate. This contract truly is life-changing for the people that do this work, and most importantly, for the people that we care for. I am so grateful to be here to talk and share this agreement with you. In the past, we have been able to do this work because of the bipartisan support we had in the legislature. I look forward to continuing that during this legislative session and many more ahead. Thank you for being a part of this incredible work and allowing me to share with you.
Thank you, Ms. Hannick. It is clear through your testimony how fortunate those boys are that you are their mom. Thank you for your testimony and for your hard work. Members, are there questions for Senator Pappas? Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Pappas, I thought I heard that for those that aren't under the union contract, that they would also get a pay raise along with this. So it would be similar for, that was a concern of mine that we're, we've got so many employees here that are under our union employees, but what about those who aren't? And so I thought that's what you said. If you could clarify that for me.
Yes, Madam Chair, Senator Anderson, I did, according to the information I have, yes, they will also benefit. People who aren't in the union that will also benefit from the new contract.
Thank you.
Members, are there other questions? Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I don't know if this is for the author or for Ms. Weber, but I do see it adds Juneteenth as a holiday on January 1st, 2024. Do we know when, I mean, obviously that hasn't been ratified yet. We had discussion about another bill earlier in committee. When did that get added to the negotiations? When was that negotiated in?
Ms. Weber.
Madam Chair and Senator Drazkowski, for many of the other negotiated labor agreements, such as ASME and MAPE and the engineer contract that you heard from with Senator Frentz, that was included during the 2022-23 labor agreements. So with this one, it's now included in the 2024-25 SEIU agreement.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Weber. So, Ms. Weber, when did, for this contract for the SEIU one, when did that provision get negotiated between the executive branch and the union?
Ms. Weber.
Madam Chair and Senator Drazkowski, the current SEIU agreement is one of the first agreements that was ratified, and it was ratified during the 2021 legislative session, prior to that being a provision in the other state contracts. And so this is the first time this is in the SEIU contract.
Senator Drazkowski.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. So, Ms. Weber, I'm looking at the memo here, and on page 2 of the memo dated February 28th, 2023, it's got number 5 on the bottom. So I'm wondering, when was it that that was negotiated between MMB and the union? What was the date that it got added to the contract proposal that's before us today?
Ms. Weber.
Madam Chair and Senator Drazkowski, the specific date of negotiation, I would need to defer to Minnesota Management and Budget on. It was first submitted to the Subcommittee on Employee Relations on February 27th of this year. Okay. But the specific date of negotiation, I would have to defer to Minnesota Management and Budget if they have that information.
Senator Drazkowski.
Can MMB answer that for us, Madam Chair?
I'm looking to see if there's a pledge.
Madam Chair and Senator Drazkowski, it looks like they would have to check on that.
Senator Drazkowski.
Well, Madam Chair, can somebody from MMB talk to us? Phoning a friend.
I suspect there's an intersection, Senator Drazkowski, in your questions and the debate that we had on the issue of Juneteenth, which was one of the first pieces of legislation this committee heard in this term. Welcome to the committee. If you could introduce yourself for the record and proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Murphy. My name is Jennifer Klesman. I'm the Enterprise Director of Labor Relations at Minnesota Management and Budget. And I would have to pull up our bargaining records to see the specific date that we reached a tentative agreement with respect to adding Juneteenth as a holiday moving forward. So it's not going to be added as a holiday until approval of this contract, and it's prospective at this point. So it was one of the dates where we were in negotiations in January 2023.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you tell us when the final agreement on, when the contract negotiations closed up between MMB and the union? What was that date? When you pulled them all together and said, okay, we have all these, does everybody agree? However you do that.
Yeah.
What was that date?
I didn't bring back, sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you, Chair Murphy, Senator Drazkowski. I don't have my calendar on my phone, so I don't know if I can peek at a calendar to be able to give you a better idea.
It was in January.
Yes, it was January, and
It's Senator Drazkowski, and perhaps they'll be able to draw up the information, but it's a real specific question. And
Okay.
perhaps we won't be able to get to it while we're in the committee.
I look forward to it, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. Senator
Madam Chair,
Pappas.
I just had a further clarification to Senator Anderson's question that was reminded to me. Somebody just said January 6th, to your question. I called a friend, and they said January 6th.
So Senator Pappas, is that an answer to Senator
Yes.
Drazkowski's question?
Which question does that answer, Senator Pappas?
Yeah, so the other thing with Senator Anderson, Madam Chair, is I mentioned in my comments that if there are workers in a traditional or agency PCA program, they're getting the additional money, but they are not required to pass that on to the workers because they're private sector employees.
Madam Chair,
Senator Anderson.
and Senator Pappas, how many people would that include that wouldn't be included?
Perhaps DHS can help with that question.
Welcome to the committee.
Hello, Chair Murphy. I'm Elise Bailey, Budget Director of the Department of Human Services. So this agreement covers 29,000 workers, and that's about a quarter of the PCA workers across Minnesota.
So, Madam Chair,
Senator Anderson.
to the testifier, so there's 3/4 that won't get, it won't affect 3/4 of the workers? Is that correct?
Ms. Bailey.
Chair Murphy, Senator Anderson, what this agreement does is it provides requirements for about a quarter of the workers to get this minimum wage or the tiered wages. However, because it's a Medicaid program, we apply that rate increase to the whole program. And so while the traditional workers won't be, the agencies won't be required to pass along the wage floor, they will get the benefit of getting the increased rate to be able to compete in the marketplace.
Madam Chair,
Senator Anderson.
to the testifier, they'll get a what increase? How much increase?
Ms. Bailey.
Senator Murphy, or Chair Murphy, Senator Anderson, I think the first rate increase in 2024 is 16.88% to the Medicaid rate. And then in 2020, the next one is another, it's 22% from the current rate for the following year.
So, Madam Chair,
Senator Anderson.
that's for the 29,000 people, correct? Or is that for the 3/4 that don't get, I mean, they're going to get an increase, but are they, what's the percentage, I guess? Is it the same percentage?
Correct.
It is going to be the same percentage for the 3/4 that don't get the same wage increase that the quarter.
Well, Madam Chair, Senator Anderson, they could get the wage increase. It'd be up to the agency if they pass that along to their workers, and likely they will get some increase because they still have to compete in the marketplace.
So there's not a guarantee.
Not a guarantee, though. Right?
And Senator Anderson, when we take up the Health and Human Services bill, we could perhaps add language that would encumber some of that rate increase to go to the workers in the private sector as a way to accomplish that goal.
Well, Madam Chair, it'd be nice if everybody got the wage increase.
Right.
So I'm just concerned that this is only going to cover a quarter of the employees that are people that are involved with the PCA.
Well, perhaps we can work together to extend it further. I'd like to do that work with you. Senator Pappas.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Are there further questions? Senator Coran and then Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Pappas and Ms. Weber, could you just go over who's getting in fiscal year 2024, kind of cover the reasoning for the orientation and the stipends and the trust for 24-25, as well as the retention bonus? I think the one testifier talked about $1,000 retention after, I think, 6 months. But there's $50 million there, and I'd like to know, what are the other? We do, believe me, we know it's important. But I'd like to know where it is, because the $1,000 wouldn't add up to $50 million. And then explain the electronic visit verification temporary rate increase stipends. What are they and who do they go to?
Ms. Weber.
Madam Chair, I believe Ms. Bailey from DHS would be more appropriate to respond to those
Ms. Bailey.
questions.
Chair Murphy, Senator Cran, the $50 million total appropriation for the $1,000 bonuses, that is based on an estimate of the current 29,000 workforce that we have right now, And considering people coming in and out of the bargaining unit over the next 2 years, that we would need an appropriation of about $50 million to cover the total, in and out within the bargaining unit.
Madam Chair, quick
Senator
follow-up.
Cran.
And so that, is it just the 6-month retention then? So new hire, 6-month retention for anybody who comes in new?
Ms.
What are the categories? Because the 29,000 that are here, are they all going to get a bonus of $1,000, and then anybody new gets a retention? At least just describe all the options that are provided.
Ms. Bailey.
Chair Murphy, Senator Cran, I believe anyone immediately who has been in the workforce for 6 months or more would get the $1,000 bonus and then, or retention bonus. And then throughout the next biennium, as somebody hits that 6-month mark, they would then get that retention bonus as well. So it would hit new workers. This is a workforce that is, people leave the workforce and are added quite frequently, and so we think that a $50 million appropriation would cover the whole population within the 2 fiscal years.
And then, Madam Chair,
Senator Cran.
just the last, you covered the electronic visit verification and the temporary rate increase stipends. What is it and who are they going to?
Ms. Weber. Or Ms. Bailey.
Chair Murphy, Senator Cran. So the electronic visit verification, it was a requirement by the federal government for us to implement a electronic visit verification for these services. And so this MOU with SEIU, between SEIU and the state, is really around how to reimburse workers for the use of their personal mobile device, because that is one way for us to implement the electronic visit verification. And so it gives a one-time stipend for members of the bargaining unit to reimburse them for the costs of utilizing that mobile device. And then, as Senator Pappas stated in her opening remarks about the temporary rate increase, that is intended to reimburse union members who didn't receive an increase in wages during that period of time that temporary rate increase was in effect. And so that will be, the total appropriation will basically be divided by the number of workers that would apply for that stipend up to a certain value. I think $1,000 is the max.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One quick follow-up.
Senator Cran.
So on is this just you're paying a portion of the cell phone bill to aid in the electronic an application that resides on their phone, or to get them to access the mobile reporting or on-site reporting? Help me understand. I spend my whole career tracking this. So, are we paying their phone bill, or are we just, please explain me what that is.
Ms. Bailey.
Chair Murphy, Senator Cran, it's a one-time payment to partially reimburse for their technology costs.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Cran.
Thank you.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I am trying to follow along. Senator Cran was talking about one area where it talks about $1,000 stipend out of a $50 million pot, and there's another one on the other memo that we have. It's got another $1,000 of appropriation or of stipends, supposedly for COVID-19 stipends. I'm seeing all these $1,000 things and then wondering, did these same people get frontline worker pay as well?
Ms. Bailey.
Chair Murphy, Senator Drazkowski, they would have received a frontline worker pay if they applied for that at that time.
Okay, so
Senator Drazkowski.
Madam Chair, we got frontline worker pay, we got COVID-19 $1,000 stipends, and we got another $1,000 stipend for another $50 million. I don't know what that one's supposed to represent, but it sounds like the workers came out pretty good on this one, Madam Chair. The taxpayers are not so good, but thank you.
Thanks, Senator Drazkowski, and for our loved ones who need the care, A+. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we're ready to accept the motion to approve this. as amended.
Seeing no further questions, then I'll move that Senate File 1616 as amended be approved to pass and sent to general orders. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. The motion is adopted.
Madam
We're on
Chair.
your way. Senator Anderson,
Where is this going to?
going to the floor.
Going to the floor?
Going to the floor. All right. Senator Pappas is going to remain with us. Senate File 413. Members, there's an author's amendment on this bill. In this committee, this bill will go from here to the Labor Committee. So we're following along. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The A3 is the author's amendment. And I'll be addressing my comments. Both of us will be addressing my comments. This is Ms. Lincheski, who is the
Welcome to the
Executive
committee.
Director of the Pension Commission, who wrote the bill.
Welcome to the committee, Ms. Lincheski. Members, you have the A3 in your packet. Ms. Lincheski, would you like to describe for us?
Madam
Well,
Chair, I'm
Senator
going to
Pappas.
start.
All right.
Right. Do you want to just adopt the author's amendment? Then we can address it.
All those in favor of the A3 amendment, please say aye. And those opposed say no, and the amendment is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll start out then. Members, serving on the Pension Commission for many years, I realize that those of us with pension plans are extremely fortunate. All Minnesota workers should have the opportunity to easily save and have those savings safely invested. According to the Small Business Administration, nearly 50% of Americans are employed by small businesses of 50 or less employees, and of that half, only 10% have a retirement savings plan at work. This could lead to a situation like my Aunt Rose. Aunt Rose outlived her husband for 20 years. She went through his 401k, their savings, and proceeds from the sale of the family home. Finally, she ended up living on Social Security of only $1,200 a month. Her rent at a Hopkins senior apartment building was $900 a month. That left only $300 for food, medicine, and other incidentals. An IRA savings account could have provided her with her food budget. Members, the purpose of this bill is to create a retirement plan option for Minnesotan employees whose employer does not currently provide a retirement plan. Research has shown that offering employees a way to save through payroll deductions increases their ability to save money for retirement, promotes individual responsibility and financial freedom. Further, a retirement plan options for workers could save Minnesota taxpayers an estimated $258 million over 10 years in Medicaid savings alone. Members, what this does, it establishes and governs a new savings program called the Minnesota Secure Choice Retirement Program. As I mentioned, employers that do not sponsor a retirement plan for their employees are required to transmit a percentage of each employee's pay to a state-sponsored individual retirement account, an IRA. There's no cost to employers. There's no cost to employers except for incidental cost incurred to modify their payroll systems to deduct contributions on either a pre-tax or after-tax basis and send them to the State Board of Investment for deposit into employee accounts. I'm very happy to have Jill Schertz from the State Board of Investment here joining us in the audience. She is the Executive Director and a supporter of the program. The program's governing structure consists of a board of directors, an executive director, and staff. Record keeping and administration are handled by an outside administrator. The program is required to be up and running by October 1st, 2024, and the board may open the program in phases over a 2-year period. Madam Chair, if the members are interested in more details, I know most of this bill is about the board that is being set up. We could certainly go through that. I could also have Ms. Lincheski go through it, whatever the members would desire.
Thank you, Senator Pappas. Ms. Lincheski, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
I don't actually. I'm here for questions, though.
All right, then. And before we go to members, I'm wondering if Mr. Erickson, you'd like to talk with us about the fiscal note?
Yes, Madam Chair, I can walk us through, maybe not quite a walkthrough, it's a fairly long fiscal note. It's broken into several agencies, and I would start on page 5 of the fiscal note where you see the Secure Choice Retirement Program Board. And actually, if you flip over to the next couple of pages, starting on page 8 of the fiscal note, you can see a breakout of the costs contemplated for the Secure Choice Board. Among these categories, you'll see that there is member meeting participation costs for those who serve on the board itself. There are staffing costs, including some FTEs for the board, office setup and operational costs, and then contract services costs. What I would call out specifically in the contract services costs is you will see some on the, let's see here, 5th line, some money that would be transferred over to the State Investment Board. So that's reported elsewhere in the fiscal note. It's a transfer over to the SBI, who would have 2 FTEs who worked the program over there, but the money originates with the board here. The totals there then that are imagined for the Secure Choice Board are about $700,000 in the first year and $1 million in the second year. The tails years are each $837,000. One thing I would point out specifically is how the administration of the program would be funded is through fees that would be charged to participants. An earlier version of the note had a different cost structure, but in this version of the note, where the cost has come down a little, there would be fees charged to participants, though there would probably be an appropriation or a transfer into this account to support the board in its first couple of years. If you then turn to page 14, you'll find the Attorney General's portion of the note. The Attorney General imagines having 2.5 FTEs who would be charged with compliance with the program. That would be at a cost of $521,000 a year. There's no appropriation in the bill currently for that purpose, so there's various ways that could be funded, either with existing resources at the Attorney General's office or through a new appropriation. And then the final portion of the fiscal note that is in the state government jurisdiction would be for the investment board on page 20. And this is the receiving end of what I mentioned with the Secure Choice Board. If you go to page 21, you'll see that there are transfers in of $123,000 in the first year and $246,000 ongoing that are then spent at the SBI, and this is for those FTEs that are being funded through a charge over to the Secure Choice Board. Other costs at the governor's office for appointments and such are all absorbable costs at the legislature as well.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. We do have 2 members of the public that are here to testify. I believe Ms. Beth Kadoun is here, and I understand Eric Forsberg, if you're present. All right. Welcome to the committee, Ms. Kadoun.
You can stay here. She can stay here. And Madam Chair, there are support letters in the packet, but to respect the committee's time, I didn't bring in 5 testifiers.
We really appreciate that, Senator Pappas, and there are a number of letters of support in our packets. Thank you. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Beth Kadoun. I represent the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. We're an organization of about 6,300 businesses across the state. About 80% of our membership has 100 employees or less. We certainly agree with the worthy goal of encouraging greater savings. However, we do have great concerns with this bill as it does create a new employer mandate with many unknowns related to costs, timelines, and penalties. Minnesota already imposes a higher cost of doing business than most other states, and this bill adds a new requirement that's not required in most other states, and it's not required in any of our neighboring states. The hardest hit would be our smallest businesses, as they do not have HR departments to help navigate this bill, but please consider the cumulative impact of all the other bills that are moving through the legislature, adding new employer requirements, such as the new sick leave bill and the new 24-week paid leave bill. We would urge the legislators to address some following issues as this bill moves forward. We strongly encourage adding a small business exemption. This bill does not include one currently, and most other states that have enacted a similar program do have a small business exemption. For example, Colorado, Illinois, and Maine exempt employers with 5 or fewer employees, New York with 10 or fewer, New Jersey with 25 or fewer employees. Because as I said, if you can consider this bill along with the other additional employer mandate bills that are moving along, it is adding many new requirements for our private sector employers, subjecting them to penalties and additional costs. Providing that small business exemption would greatly help lessen the burden, the cost, and the confusion. And realize if you do a small business exemption, it could be coupled, as the bill has, with a voluntarily opt-in provision. So you could still have those small businesses be able to avail themselves of this program along with their employees. We are also concerned with penalties being set by a non-elected board. We would encourage these penalties, really think should be under the legislative purview. If you look at many other states that have the similar program, a lot of them have very minimal penalties, for example, or just a warning, as New Jersey has, where there's a warning for the first year. And Maine, for example, has just $25 penalty. So we think we would encourage setting the penalties by the legislature. We also have a concern over the October 1st, 2024 date. It seems a bit ambitious, especially if the board's going to be appointed by January, their first meeting by March of 2024, and then the program would start 6 months later. So we would encourage you to address that timeline as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kadoun, for your testimony. Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you want me to, I have questions for this testifier. Do you want me to wait?
No, you should proceed.
Thank you. I have a few questions, and I was reading the letter. Do you know approximately how many small businesses in Minnesota with 5 or fewer or 10 or fewer offer retirement programs?
Ms. Kadoun.
Madam Chair, Senator McQuay, I do not have that number. I certainly could look that up.
Madam Chair, I mentioned in my opening comments that just the national data is about 10%.
Senator McQuaid.
Madam Chair, thank you. And so for these, if we exempt, do you know how many people work at businesses of that size, Minnesotans?
Ms. Kadoun.
Madam Chair, members, there's actually a good letter from the National Federation of Independent Businesses that does lay out some statistics on the number of businesses with 5 or fewer employees. That's about 60% of all firms, and that's about 4% of the non-government workforce. If you have businesses with 10 or employees, that's 75% of all firms in Minnesota, and then 8% of total government workforce. So some data there you could look at.
Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you for that. I guess my one question would be, so for folks who are, if we exempt small employers, what should those employees do for retirement?
Ms. Kadoun.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, as I mentioned, there is a voluntary opt-in that is included in the bill currently, so they'd still be able to avail themselves of the program. It would just be they would not be subject to the penalties and the mandatory requirement.
Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, so the employees could opt in, it wouldn't be the employers opting in, but the employees themselves would opt in?
Yeah, go ahead. Ms. Linczewski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator. Under federal law, you cannot have employers voluntarily opt in. So it has to be a mandatory opt-in. So the provision in the bill requires all employers to opt in. There is a provision, though, that allows employees who are not represented or are not employed by these covered employers to opt in on their own. So an employee could join, but an employer does not have that option. They're required to be in the program.
Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I understand that part, but if we exempted small businesses, we were talking about an opt-in from the requirement. And are you saying that if we exempted small businesses, employers could opt in instead of being required to, or employees themselves could opt in even if their employer does not?
Ms. Linczewski.
Madam Chair, Senator, yes, the latter. So employees can opt in. Employers are not permitted to opt in. That cannot be an option. So employees can. Does that make sense?
Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You can't opt in unless we make a mandate.
Correct.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my question.
Sorry, I should have said that louder.
Yeah, you can say it louder, Senator.
Yeah,
Senator
I think
Pappas.
what Ms. Linczewski said is that employers cannot, if we don't provide the mandate, then employers can't opt in. But, so we have to provide the mandate. I just wanted to address a few of the comments that the
Thanks, Ms. Kadoon, for your testimony.
Ms. Kadoon said, sorry, I wrote down
And we
Beth.
do have one more testifier.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that because we're really worried about the employees that work for the small businesses, I think it defeats the purpose to exempt small businesses. And the paperwork we're talking about is really minimal. I mean, you have every small business has some kind of a system, a payroll system that they have. And so it's adding one more line to their payroll system. They have to deduct taxes, Social Security, workers' comp, whatever. So it's really very minimal what they're doing. Thus, the whole way this works is, when you don't see the money, you can't spend it. And we found that really having a auto IRA is really the most successful way. An employee who really, really doesn't want to save for retirement, they are allowed to opt out. And then I think the beauty of this is having the SBI, the State Board of Investment, do the investing, because people who are savvy about the stock market, they'll go set up their own IRA and do their own investing, but we're not talking about people like that, and they can always opt out and do that if they want to. We're talking about people who really, really need to save for retirement, and the SBI just has an incredible rate that they accrue with their investments. So it's really a benefit for them to invest through the SBI.
Thank you, Senator Pappas. I'm going to invite Mr. Forsberg to come up and testify. He's the last of our testifiers. We do have one other bill. After this one, we're going to get through them both. This is important policy, so I appreciate the testimony and the scrutiny and all of the information that you're sharing with us. Welcome to the committee, Mr. Forsberg. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Eric Forsberg. I'm a restaurateur here in Minnesota. I have 5 restaurants in Minneapolis, Stillwater, and in the western suburbs. I employ about 225 people between all my organizations. I am here in support of Senate File 413, establishing the Minnesota Secure Choice Retirement Program. As a small business owner, I try to provide every opportunity for my employees to build financial stability now and in the future. Having secure choice accounts as an option would help ensure that many more people are saving for retirement. I particularly appreciate that this would be an option, not a requirement, for businesses and employees. In Minnesota, about 1/3 of employees don't have access to job-related retirement plans. Secure choice accounts would fix that. We also know that workers of color are least likely to be covered by an employer-sponsored plan. My industry specifically is one of the largest employers of single mothers, first immigrants, and people of color. Being able to provide retirement accounts will be another way that restaurants can attract and maintain a strong workforce. I say that only because many people have looked at our industry for a long time as a transient industry. We are trying to change that. We're trying to get people to think of the restaurant industry and the hospitality industry as a career and not just a job. And plans like this will help us as employers train, retain, and hopefully promote from within the employees that we have. This easily accessible benefit will make it simple for workers to save from their paychecks with no ongoing costs or risks. Thank you for considering enacting this common sense plan to benefit Minnesota businesses and workers.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for coming to the committee.
Thank you.
Senator Coran has a question.
Thank you,
Senator
Madam
Coran.
Chair. And the testifier, I think it's great that you're here to participate, but you described it as being optional for a business, and it's clearly not optional for a business. And so, and I appreciate the terms used by the other testifier that they get to enroll. Well, it's a mandate. You're going to participate. Every business must participate. And so I struggle with it, and I do have a couple of questions. So in the employee opt-in, Senator Pappas, you said that the employee has the ability to opt out, and who would they opt out? Who will they contact to opt out? Through their employer or directly to the new agency?
Ms. Lincheski.
Madam Chair, Senator Coran, there will be a record keeper contracted here. The executive director will contract with a record keeper with the board's approval. The record keeper will be doing that. So if an employee does not want to contribute, they can opt out right away. So they'll receive notice of the program, information about the program, and then within 30 days they can elect to not contribute at all to the program.
Madam Chair, if they
Senator
don't
Graham.
opt out within the 30 days, what are their options?
Ms. Linczewski.
Madam Chair, Senator, they will be in the program. Payroll deductions will be made and sent to the SBI for investment in an IRA account.
Madam Chair, so
Senator
that,
Correa.
help me clarify, so as long as they're employed by that employer, they are mandatorily required to make a contribution?
Ms. Linczewski.
Madam Chair, thank you, Senator. Yes, that is true.
And Madam Chair, Senator Coran.
Senator Pappas.
The board has some flexibility, is they could provide an opportunity for an employee to review that selection, every year, every 2 years, so that they could then decide to opt out. The board has that flexibility.
Madam Chair.
Senator Coran.
Senator Pappas, every year, every 2 years, things change dramatically for an employee. And without knowing what that cost is, that's a cost. This is directly out of their pocket. It could be offset a little bit because of the exemption from income tax, or exemption from income tax. But you're going to have some unelected board arbitrarily deciding what my take-home pay is and put restrictions on my ability to make those decisions for myself. And I think it's noble, but you also have in here the board will arbitrarily decide what an employee's future escalation and contribution is going to be. What choice does that employee have to escalate their contribution to their own individual retirement plan?
Madam
Senator
Chair,
Pappas.
it's not that different from what we do with government employees when we set up a pension program. We do have a deduction that's determined by the plan directors and consultation with the legislature about what their share is, what the employee share is, what the employer share is.
Madam
That
Chair.
does happen.
Senator Pappas, you're talking about a
Senator
pension.
Coran.
You're talking about a pension. You're not talking about their IRA or 401k contribution, which they control directly. They make that determination. Some unelected board doesn't make that determination for them at all. So it isn't analogous unless you're talking about the deferred comp. And again, that's the employee choice. And so, Madam Chair, I have some real problems with us believing government's going to be able to function in a more efficient manner. I'll leave it my last question. So it's on the benefit side for the employees who will be mandated to participate in this, if they get locked in or they don't cancel for the first 30 days, is this a defined benefit plan on the back side, or is this a defined contribution plan?
Madam
Senator
Chair, it's a
Pappas.
defined contribution plan, an IRA.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Coran. Thank you. Senator Barr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Pappas, I'm reading through the bill here, page 4. There's contribution rate vesting, and then at the bottom, 429 to 433, withdrawals and distributions. If this is a retirement plan, how can an employee take all or part of their money at any time they choose without coming across the IRS penalties for early withdrawal before 59 and a half years of age?
Senator Barr, are you looking at the A3 amendment that went on?
No, I'm looking at the bill. Was it delete all? Sorry.
Not a worry.
Is that addressed in the bill somewhere else then? I'm sorry.
Yeah, she can.
Ms. Linczewski.
Madam Chair, Senator Barr, you are correct that when they take a distribution of this before age 55 or 59 and a half, they will pay the early distribution penalty.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Barr.
I don't have I'm missing it somewhere. Thank you.
Senator Anderson.
Madam Chair, I'd just like a roll call on the bill.
A roll call has been requested. Senator Barr, do you want me to bring you my A3? All right. I just want to give you a moment, Senator Barr. All right. All right, then. Okay. Thank you. Are there further questions? And seeing no further questions, Senator Anderson?
Madam Chair, Senator Pappas, why is the Attorney General in here as the law enforcer why not something like the Department of Labor and Industry or somebody else other than the Attorney General?
Senator
Madam
Pappas.
Chair, I think that we were looking at models in other states, but you're right, it could be Dolly. We're giving Dolly a lot of responsibility this year. So it's, it was kind of an arbitrary choice.
Well, I'd like to see somebody different than the Attorney General in charge of enforcing this. It seems like they've got a lot on their plate also, so.
Yeah, Madam Chair and Senator Anderson, we're going to judiciary next, so that's where we're really going to look at the penalties and who should, what we should put in the bill. A cap on penalties, for example, is something that we're considering, and we can certainly look at maybe having Dolly. I'll have a conversation with them.
And Madam Chair, you're talking, Senator Pappas,
Anderson.
you're talking penalties for employers?
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Why would they need a penalty?
Madam Chair, Senator Anderson, yeah, I think that's a good question. And what we've just heard from other states is that it's important to have that in place so that all businesses comply and offer this option to their employees.
I guess that's why I call for a roll call.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. I appreciate that. All right. Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I read in the bill this brand new, shocking, the Democrat majority is bringing another mandate on businesses, which is just amazing that there's not an end to it, Madam Chair. It's amazing to me. I think I read somewhere in the bill that even sole proprietors have to be subject to this new mandate. Is that right?
Ms. Linczewski or Senator Pappas?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Senator Drazkowski, yeah, that's correct. Although if you're a sole proprietor, you're the only employee of your business, you could opt out.
So if
you're your own
if you're
employee.
self-employed.
Yes, you're
Ms.
your own
Linczewski?
employee. And it doesn't cover contracted workers either.
Ms. Linczewski?
Yeah, Senator Pappas, Senator Drazkowski, Madam Chair, the first version of the bill, the introduced version, included sole proprietors. The DE does not, so they are not included. They are able to join, as an individual under that provision, but they are not considered a covered employer. A covered employer has to have at least one employee.
Senator Drazkowski?
I don't think we're getting terms straight here, Madam Chair. I'm talking about sole proprietorships versus partnerships and corporations. So sole proprietorships as a category are not mandated under the bill. Is that what you're saying?
Senator, excuse me, Ms.
Madam
Linczewski?
Chair, yes, Senator Drazkowski, that is what I'm saying. Sole proprietorships are not required to be in the bill, to be in the program.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm learning. Thanks, Ms. Linczewski. Can someone point to me the provision in the bill that Senator Cran was drilling down to with the 30-day window of opportunity for freedom for the employee to jump the heck out of this thing?
They have to.
Where is that?
Is it in the summary?
Ms. Linczewski?
Sorry, Madam Chair, Senator Drazkowski, it's an employer requirement. So it's in the section that governs the responsibilities of covered employers. And they are required under subdivision 3 to provide the information to each covered employee at least 30 days prior to the date of the first paycheck from which employee contributions would be deducted.
Can we have a page and line number, Madam Chair?
I'm sorry.
Ms.
Lines-
Linczewski?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, line 6.1 to 6.5. Sorry.
I'm not seeing that, 6.1.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome,
Madam
Senator
Chair, just
Drazkowski.
some comments on the bill, or maybe a question for the author, Madam Chair. Senator Pappas, the businesses are fleeing Minnesota right now because the oppressive nature of the government that we have in this state is chasing them out of here. how is this going to help us encourage businesses to not only come to this state, but to stay in this state?
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Senator Drazkowski. I guess I would ask you if you could point me to the research that gave you that information, that businesses are fleeing Minnesota. I'm kind of not aware of that. I think that our business community is doing quite well, and I think responsible businesses certainly want their employees to save for retirement. And this is a very minimal thing that they need to do in terms of their payroll system. They don't have to contribute to this. This doesn't cost the employer anything, but yet it gives their employee an opportunity to be more responsible, to take some individual responsibility, to make sure that their future is going to be more secure, that they won't be dependent on government resources, because they'll have that little extra money in their pocket that could supplement Social Security, which we know is not enough. So I think that we've talked to many small businesses. I restricted the number of people who could come today. There's some letters in your packet that, like Mr. Forsberg, kind of welcome the opportunity. It's very complicated for a business to set up a 401k program. The federal rules are very complicated. It's hard for them to do it. I think that's a barrier for them in not setting up a pension system. And this one, which they're actually not allowed to contribute to this, at least gives their employee a chance to save for retirement. And like I said in the beginning, is when you kind of don't see the money in your paycheck, you don't miss it. And yet, you know, you kind of know in the back of your head that that money is getting interest and is gaining, and that gives you some security when you're facing retirement.
So Madam Chair and Senator
One more, and then I've got Senator McQuaid to follow you.
Thank you. So thank you, Madam Chair. So Senator Pappas, I mean, I see articles in the newspaper weekly, and some of them are in your district where businesses are leaving this state. And I struggle with bringing yet another mandate. I don't know how another mandate is going to encourage businesses to be here. And had I known this bill was coming before us today, I would have had some business owners from my district here, and they would have had a much different outlook than the one testifier that did appear before us that owns a business. So I think the notion or the sentiment among businesses in Minnesota is much different than which was portrayed in the hearing today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. I've got McQuaid, Jasinski, and Barr on deck. We're going to take those quickly, and then we're going to go to a vote. McQuaid.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will go really quickly. Actually, Senator Pappas, you're right. Minnesota has actually been named consistently one of the best states to do business in. It's because we have an educated workforce. It's because we have beautiful land and lakes and rivers and things to do. We have more seats per capita than New York City when it comes to the arts. We have grown small businesses in Minnesota over the last 5 years by 6%, which is amazing. But what we do know as well, and I think your testifiers have spoken really well to this, is that small businesses don't always have the opportunity to set up complex things like retirement systems and all that, or provide paid family leave. You know, these are things that every person needs, that the size of your employer has no correlation to your need to take family leave to bond with your baby. It has no correlation to you not needing retirement money. And so I really appreciate you bringing this forward, because I sit on the Human Services Committee, and we hear every single day some of the most horrifying stories of people who don't have access to the things they need, particularly later on in their life. And we know the silver tsunami is here, and it's growing, and the AARP statistics are pretty shocking, right? The number of people who don't have savings, 1 in 4 have less than $1,000. I mean, that's not going to get anybody anywhere. And so this is just, it solves a really big problem that is here, it is present and coming, and for this legislature, right? Because we are in the business of making sure Minnesotans have safe and stable lives, and this is one of the ways we're going to do that. So I want to thank you for bringing the bill.
Thank you, Senator McQuaid. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to echo Senator Drazkowski's point. Just 2 days ago, Itron and Waseca leaving, shutting down 200 employees to go somewhere where it's more competitive. I'm a business broker. I do real estate. I've done it for 30 years. I listen to businesses every single day, and they're leaving the state because of the tax environment here and the burdens that we're seeing. So I don't know what color the sky is in some of your people's world are, but people are leaving Minnesota because the tax environment and the burdens that we're putting on them are forcing them out of the state. And I wish people would understand that, but they don't, and it is happening. 200 people lost to the city of Waseca is huge. They are going somewhere where it's more competitive to do business with less restrictions. I still don't get why people don't understand that. Get out and talk to your businesses. They're leaving Minnesota because of things like this, of doing this. So I'm sorry, I hear it every day. I talk to businesses. Minnesota makes it difficult for businesses between the tax environment and the burdens they're putting on our businesses. Small businesses are hitting, you said it's just a simple item. Many of my employers that have small little places are doing it by hand. They don't have program softwares to do it. They're doing their paychecks by hand, and it is more complicated for them to do that. Some of these people don't watch all the changes and see these things, and it's being more and more burdensome on them, and it's shutting them down, and we're seeing businesses shut down. I think the Center for American Experience has done some great studies on the exodus out of Minnesota because of the tax environment and some of the burdens we're putting on them. So that's my point, and if people don't believe it, come sit with me with businesses that I listen to and watch what happened in Waseca, Minnesota, shutting a plant down with 200 employees. It's killing our small cities across the state, and it's killing our small businesses. Thank you.
Senator Barr, got the
Thank you,
last
Madam.
word.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll try and be brief. I applaud the concept. We should all save it for retirement. But the state mandating every employer offer an option in here, there's no match. I get options just pop up on the phone where I'll at least get a 1% match just by going into a particular one and having my own retirement account that's mine. I mean, this is still controlled by me, but I won't be able to get it back without penalties. I can put this into 401ks, my own, that I choose, have all the choosing options on all these different investments, just like this SBI does, a multitude of options, which the SBI gives us a whole list, pages and pages of choose your different option. Where do you want to go? You can do that privately yourself right now without having a mandate. And if you happen to miss that 30-day opt-out period, you're stuck for a year. This will come out of your check as opposed to something that I control. If I have a car repair and I need to skip a month to pay for that, I can skip a month. This is going to put people in a bigger bind while trying to accomplish a great goal. It'll put them in a bigger bind because this is designed around the lowest income people we have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Barr. If you can do it briefly, Senator Drazkowski, we have one more bill we're going to do.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Linczewski, I just read the part on covered employer, and I don't see where there's an exemption for sole proprietorships in the bill. Bottom of page 1 and top of page 2, I don't see it there. Can you tell us where that exemption is for sole proprietorships?
Senator Drazkowski, I'm going to turn to Stephanie James, our counsel.
Madam Chair and members, on line 2.3, it describes that a covered employer is someone that employs one or more covered employees.
So, Madam Chair, I think Ms. James just said that every employer is included here that employs one or more employees.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it doesn't matter what form of business they have. That's not what we heard earlier.
Ms. James.
Madam Chair and members, yes, and then they would need to meet the other criteria and not be excluded under the other qualifications.
So every business in Minnesota, Madam Chair, is what it sounds like is going to be subject to this mandate as long as they employ one or more people. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, a roll call has been requested. I'll move that Senate File 413 as amended be recommended pass. And Senator Pappas, we believe we're referring this to the Committee on Labor.
Oh, okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So I move that Senate File 413 as amended be recommended to pass and re-referred to the Committee on Labor. The clerk will take the roll.
Chair Murphy?
Aye.
Vice Chair Mitchell?
Aye.
Lead Anderson?
No.
Senator Barr?
No.
Senator Carlson,
Yes.
Senator Swazinski,
Yes.
Senator Drazkowski,
No.
Senator Fateh,
Aye.
Senator Gustafson,
Yes.
Senator Jazinski,
No.
Senator Karan,
No.
Senator Lang,
No.
Senator May Quaid,
Yes.
There being 7 ayes and 6 nays, the motion is passed and the bill is on its way. Thank you, Senator Pappas. Members, we have one more bill, Senator Hauschild, Senate File 2164. This deals with state employee salaries, and we've got 2 testifiers. Members, this bill is going to be laid over for possible inclusion, so you know. Welcome to the committee, Senator Hauschild. Please join us. Introduce yourself for the record. Come on up, testifiers, and let us begin.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, this is a simple bill. It provides a uniform process for MMB to provide back pay for state executive, judicial, and legislative employees in the event that the government shuts down due to a non-appropriation. Historically, we have provided back pay for those not working during government shutdowns, but this bill provides a process through which this will happen automatically. State employees are the backbone of our government. I know my staff is critical to my success as a senator, and all of our executive, judicial, agency, and legislative staff are vital to our success as a state. Staff deserve to know that they can depend on their wages even in times of uncertainty that are completely out of their control. I am here with 2 testifiers, and I will gladly stand by with questions.
Thank you, Senator Hauschild. Mr. Bruce, welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. For the record, my name is Devin Bruce. I'm the Public Affairs Coordinator for the Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, MAPE. We cover about 15,000 state professionals across all agencies, boards, and commissions. I want to thank you for allowing us to hear this bill. Some of the former representatives have already heard this over the several different bienniums in different forms. As Senator Hauschild introduced the bill, it is very simple. It provides back pay for employees in the event of a non-appropriation. And just very quickly, what I want to just highlight is we've talked a little bit with MMB. We worked on this language with them. They brought us a little bit of a concern, so we'll be working in the interim to address that around the employees who do have to come to work, who do not get paid. During the shutdown. So with that, I'd like to yield the rest of my time to Ms. Cotter.
Welcome to the committee, Ms. Cotter. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. My name is Kathleen Cotter, and I'm a program administrator at the Department of Human Services Child Support Division, testifying today as a proud member of MAPE and on behalf of Senate File 2164. It is crucial for the state to be there to help children and families, especially children, to get the support they need to thrive. County and state child support professionals provide high-quality service to more than 314,000 families across the state to ensure that children receive the financial support that they deserve. I am proud of the work that I and my colleagues do. I was especially concerned about the children when the state government shut down twice, once in 2005 and again in 2011, when the legislature and governor could not agree on a state budget. We were not allowed to work because there was no operating money. During the shutdowns, I remember an overwhelming feeling of powerlessness and of being a pawn in a much larger political game. Both times, I was a single parent. I carried the health insurance for my children. I was responsible for their food and housing and clothing and all the things kids need on a daily basis. It was especially frustrating because it seemed to me that many of my fellow Minnesotans didn't understand why the government was closed. In a nutshell, I couldn't do my job because the governor and the legislature didn't do theirs. At the time, I was still living paycheck to paycheck, and I didn't have much money put aside. I still remember the feeling of pure helplessness that I felt then. There was nothing I could do. I didn't cause the government shutdown, and yet my daughters, Megan and Tierney, were the ones suffering. The irony was not lost on me that I worked for child support enforcement and couldn't help my own children. I foolishly assumed that we would have gotten makeup pay eventually, since we weren't responsible for the shutdown. I was wrong. It took me months and months to get back on top. You now have the opportunity to do right by state employees and not penalize us for future government shutdowns that we have no control over. Please pass Senate File 2164. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cotter. I want to make sure if there's anybody from MMB that would wish to testify, you're welcome to join us, not compelled. All right, here for questions. So members, are there questions for Senator Hauschild? Senator Hauschild?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I do have an amendment that just sort of cleans up something. It's the A1 amendment.
Ms. James.
Madam Chair and Senator Hauschild, the amendment that we prepared this morning doesn't fit with the description of the bill you just gave. I think we misunderstood a direction you wanted to go. So I think we'll work on this more for the next stop.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry about that.
No problem, no worries. Are there questions for Senator Hauschild? Senator Lang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, I'm guessing a couple of questions along the same line here. I'm looking for where the money would come from. Is it just, or is the state be operating in some sort of an operational debt until a budget is passed at that point? I'm just looking through the bill here. Or is it, and then along with that lines, how long will this go on? If we were in a government shutdown for years, would we continue to pay? And at what point in time would we have to address that?
Mr. Senator Hauschild.
Madam Chair, Senator Lang, thank you for the thoughtful question. And I may ask council to correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that this would appropriate the amount from the general operations based on the previous fiscal year.
And our fiscal analyst, Mr. Erickson.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and Senator Lang, so the bill does a couple of different things. So on the one hand, the source of funds is one issue, and so the money is appropriated from whichever funds operations came from in the previous year. So some funds would come from the general fund. There may be other funds that employees are paid out of. So that's the source of it. As far as where it's coming from, like will the state suddenly go into a deficit? The way the bill is structured right now, the payments aren't made until the employee returns to work. And so in that case, there's no payment. Presumptively, the employees wouldn't return to work until there's a new operating appropriation in place. If that were to change, it gets a little bit shakier here, but there would also be, the state doesn't stop collecting revenues during a shutdown either. So to the extent that there's revenues coming into some of the funds, there would be cash flow in that way. Let me know if I can direct some of that a little more precisely.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm guessing, I'm concerned as then you would be spending money out of an account that the legislature did not appropriate, correct?
Mr. Erickson.
Madam Chair and Senator Lang, so if there was let me think how to put this one. So because the payment isn't going to be made until there's an appropriation, that's not quite the case. The payment under the current language of the bill is made after the employee returns to work, which would be after that portion of the shutdown is resolved. It's not, the payments aren't ongoing during a shutdown.
I think that would, Madam Chair, I think that would actually make more sense to me if the payments were ongoing and we approve that ahead of time rather than doing a back pay issue. Then again, it's not appropriated dollars, so I think that's probably more an issue than what I'm trying to propose. And then one more question, Madam Chair.
Senator Lang.
A few years ago, and I know this was before you were here, Senator Hauschild, the legislature had its budget cut. Does that apply to legislators too? I haven't been able to figure out by looking at the bill whether it does or not. It does. I'm seeing nodding heads. That's interesting.
Mr. Bruce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Lang, yes, it does.
I know they keep telling me I'm a state employee. I don't know. I get to get hired every so often, but all right. That's all I got, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lang. Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two comments, one that's helpful and one that's not helpful to the bill. The first one that's helpful, Senator Hauschild, on 1.21, it appears there's two instances of the word that. You might want to take a look at that. And secondly, I'll just offer that we are seeing here again the majority bringing another bill that is going to pay people not to work. And we're doing that over and over and over again. I don't know how that moves our culture of work in Minnesota forward and makes us a more productive and prosperous state. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. All right, Senator Hauschild, I see no further questions. Do you have a closing remark for us?
Thank you, Senator Murphy. I think what is at the heart of this bill is that we have civil servants in our state that make our state run. And Minnesota is known as a state that works. That's one of our sort of unofficial mantras. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that we're maintaining and retaining the very workers that provide those services. And so to me, this is really a simple, insurement to our hardworking civil servants that they will have the back pay that they need, regardless of an outcome, a political football game that may be occurring in the legislature or with the governor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hauschild. Seeing no further questions, I'll move that Senate File 2164 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus. Thank you, members, for your hard work today. Our meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.